Probably been manipulated into coming there by the scribes and Pharisees, and Jesus holds him. I don't know what that looked like, but he took hold of him. There's no record of what the healing looked like. Can you imagine all the swelling going down? Can you imagine this man realizing that his internal organs are being healed? Can you imagine? We've seen in other situations where there's an immediately glorifying of God and a hallelujah and a praise the Lord. But we don't have that record here. We just have the healing, and then Jesus released the man or sent him away. What a beautiful picture of what God does. And we're going to come back full circle at the end of the message, and I'm going to tell you what I think this picture means. Because I think there's a deep picture here about the people that are in that room. But Jesus released him and sent him away. And he said to them, "Which one of you," now he makes it personal after he heals the man, "shall have a son?" And there are some differences in versions here, but I think son is the most accurate. "Shall have a son or an ox fall into a well, and will not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath day." Which one of you? I don't know if he's pointing at people. I don't know if he made eye contact as he went around the room. But now he made it personal. There's a story of a pastor. He's in his office. He hears sirens outside the office. And he knows there's a commotion going on. The secretary rushes into his office and says, "Pastor, someone just got hit by a car right outside the church." And the pastor said, "I'm busy. It's the end of the week. I'm trying to finish my sermon." And the secretary says, "It's your daughter." Now he gets up and goes out. See, it's easy to sit there disassociated from this man's suffering and say, hey, let's deal with the theology here. Let's argue the Sabbath day. And Jesus is saying, look, what if your son was him? What if he was in the well of despair and suffering? What would you want done? You would immediately go get him, wouldn't you? You'd go get him if you wouldn't go, "Oh, son, I'm sorry. If you're not seriously terminally hurt, we'll be back tomorrow." You wouldn't do that. You'd immediately go get him because love would trump everything else. The essence of the law is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And what? Love your neighbor as yourself. And now make it very personal. What if you're the man? What if it's not your son? What if you're all bloated and being used as a pawn in some religious game? What if you're in the well and people are looking down at you and you just broke a limb, or you think you're seriously injured? Do you think the Sabbath day is going to be the determiner here? No, because the purpose of the Sabbath is what? To focus on God's rest, His work of redemption. Hebrews 4, the whole point of Hebrews 4 is to say Jesus is our Sabbath rest. You no longer have to work. It's not about works righteousness. The whole book of Hebrews is to tell Jewish people, don't go back to works righteousness. Trust in the grace of God, pictured in the Sabbath rest offered to us in Jesus Christ. It's not to manipulate people on the Sabbath. You're not to make it like any other workday. It's true, there are those things there, but they had added so much tradition that people were stuck, and they had lost the meaning of the Sabbath day. And Jesus charges them, which one of you, if you had this situation come upon you, what would you do? Religious platitudes will not do here. And they could make no reply to this. They haven't spoken yet. They set the whole thing up, they haven't said a word. I heard somebody once say, the best self-help tape he's ever come across is a roll of duct tape. Sometimes we just need to be quiet. Kind of like the book of Job, right? When Job finally puts his hand over his mouth and says, "I'm going to stop talking now because I heard about you. But now I see you. I'm going to be quiet." And they can't respond to Jesus because they're dealing with the Lord of the universe, the one that did make the oceans and the stars and the seas, and they can't say anything. And now he turns to the invited guests. He began to speak a parable, as Jesus often did, a story, an earthly story with a spiritual point, heavenly meaning. He spoke this parable to the invited guests, verse 7, when he noticed how they had been picking out the places of honor at the table, and he began to say to them, look at verse 8. When you are invited by someone to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor lest someone more distinguished than you may have been invited by him. And he who invited you, verse 9, both shall come up and say to you, give place to this man. And then in disgrace, you proceed to occupy the last place. Jesus had been doing his own watching. He had been watching in the room, and as all this was going on, people rushed over to the ceremonially wash their hands as they would do, and then they rushed for the best seats. They had a triclinium in these days. It was 3 couches, typically in a U shape. Each one of them accommodated 3 people. So you'd have one here, and one here, kind of shaping, giving the shape of a U. It's been argued that the place of honor was at the base of the U, and there would be a person on your right hand and on your left hand. Those were considered seats of honor. Some have argued that Jesus may have been on the side of the U, but for our purposes it really doesn't matter. But what Jesus was watching was people make a beeline for the best seats, the seats of honor, right? Doesn't it crack you up how people do this? Like, example, you're on an airplane, and of course, there's all kinds of jockeying position for airplane. But then when the bell rings, when you finally land and the bell rings, ding! Everybody gets up and starts to get in those overhead bins. And you're like, you're not going anywhere. Yeah, but I'm more important than all of you. And I'm going to get my bag and I'm going to stand here so I can stand. Why? So I can stand. But you're not going anywhere. Right. So you just sit there and watch these people. It's absolutely crazy. And Jesus says, look, if you do that, if you take the seat of honor, there may be somebody invited who's more important to you, and there you are. I get the best seat, and you know, little religious musical chairs. I bumped him out, I bumped her out, and there I am, right? And here comes the host. Excuse me, you're in his seat. Have you ever had this happen to you before? Have you ever been sneaky and taken the seat that you weren't supposed to be in? No, Christians don't. A ticket that had a seat number, but you moved up to another seat. Oh, I can feel the conviction rising in our soul. And then someone taps you on the shoulder and you don't want to look. Because it's that person that has that yellow vest on. And every eye turns to you and they say to you, can I see your ticket? You're in the wrong seat. And you go, oh, I didn't realize that I did that. And then you take what's called the walk of shame. And they say, you say, where is my seat? They say, level ZZZ, seat 399. And then you're up there like Bob Uecker. He missed the tag! He missed the potatoes! I don't know. You baseball fans will get that. Anyway. See, Jesus, maybe with a kind of a faded smile, a nodding of the head, was watching what was going on in this room. And he was like, really? Turn to the book of Proverbs for a second. So, these are supposed to be the experts in the Bible, right? Proverbs 25. Great thing about Proverbs is that there's 31 of them. So if you're looking for devotional reading, read the one that matches the day of the month. If some of you are saying, you know, they keep saying read the Bible. I don't know what to read. There's 31 Proverbs. So today's the 24th of the month. Read Proverbs 24. And you can read Psalm 24. And you'll have a little built-in reading plan. You can't read them too many times because there's so much good wisdom. But they should have read this one. Here's what it says. Proverbs 25:6. Do not claim honor in the presence of the king. Do not stand in the place of great men. For it is better that it should be said to you, come up here, than that you should be put lower in the presence of the prince whom your eyes have seen. Proverbs 25:6 and 7. They should have read that. Because now they're in the presence of the king. Where's he sitting? Have they given him the place of honor? I don't know. There's not really a mention of that. But here they are. And Jesus is watching this little game go on. And all I can say is the word that sums it up, go back to Luke, is pride. The dictionary defines pride as a high or inordinate opinion of one's own dignity, importance, merit, superiority, whether it's cherished in the mind or displayed in conduct, etc. It's an unduly favorable idea of one's own appearance, advantages, achievements, etc. The basic meaning of pride is, I'm for me. And that's what comes out. When pride comes, Proverbs 11:2 says, then comes dishonor. But with the humble, there is wisdom. A.W. Tozer says, quote, the meek man is not a human mouse, afflicted with a sense of his own inferiority. Rather, he may be in his moral life as bold as a lion and as strong as Samson. But he has stopped being fooled about himself. He has accepted God's estimate of his own life. He knows he is as weak and helpless as God declared him to be. But paradoxically, he knows at the same time that he is in the sight of God of more importance than angels, in himself nothing, in God everything. That is his motto. Close quote. That's great insight. And see, the implications, spiritually speaking, are deep. Because when you come to know your place in the kingdom, you realize, man, I am worse off than I imagined. And I heard this quote, I think it was from one of a book written by one of the Christian singers, his name not coming to mind. I'm worse off than I could have imagined, but more loved than I ever could have dreamed. That's the paradox. That's the beauty of the insight of who you are in Jesus Christ and how you need him.